It's time once again for another thrilling episode of Markout Radio. For the next hour, sit back, pull the stick out of your ass, and enjoy. Be warned though, smarks and internet know-it-alls will be offended, annoyed, and generally pissed off at what's about to happen to your ear holes. You've been warned. Now, Markout Radio.
Welcome to Markout Radio Goes Nitro, episode 97 for July 22nd, 1997, out of Jacksonville, Coliseum, Jacksonville, Florida. Hosted, of course, this week by Tony Schiavone, Larry Zbyszko, Mike Tenay, and Bobby the Brain Heenan. Now, before we get into the show, there's some confusion as to why Nitro's on a Tuesday instead of being on a Monday, because, of course, the announcers didn't tell us. And when you go back and look, there's a few explanations by numerous sources that all seem to disagree with one another. But unfortunately for all of them, there are, there are histories, and there are factual events, and there are, there's broadcast details. And one of those was that the actual answer, of course, is that there is a TV miniseries on starring Tom Berenger, Sam Elliott, and Gary Busey called The Rough Riders. Now, this is not the CFL team that Mike Tenay butchers the name of. This was a made-for-TV movie mini-series where Berenger pitched himself to play Teddy Roosevelt during his military years. Episode 1, of course, aired on Sunday night. Episode 2 airs on Nitro's usual spot. Now, why the flying fuck would TNA shuffle a show they invested so much into for a TV movie? Well, it's a very simple answer, of course. It was a TNT production. That's why. It cost $19 million to make and was the most watched TV movie in July of 1997. I'm not sure really that's something to crow about, but here we are. Now, there were and continue to be a lot of made-for-TV movies. Goddamn, the Hallmark Channel has cornered the market on this shit. However, in most cases, there are very few made-for-TV movies that have this kind of exposure anymore. Anyways, they invested a lot of time and money into the Rough Riders, and it got fairly shitty reviews. While, of course, 16 million people tuned in to watch it on the first, of course, not on the first night, just over, I believe it was 10 airings of it. Now, on night 1, they pulled a 6.2 on a Sunday night, which isn't half bad. On night 2, the night it replaced Nitro on TNT for the night, it drew a 6.8. That's right. It drew more than both fucking wrestling shows combined. Now, if you are on Twitch, of course, at this point, you are going to see the Rough Riders mini-series part 1 and 2 links, because you can watch it for free on YouTube. If you're listening on podcast, or of course listening on YouTube, you will see it in the show notes this week. Now, here's my thing. People are going to like what they're going to like. And wrestling fans didn't like to have to play second fiddle to the NBA. They definitely didn't like having to play second fiddle to Teddy Roosevelt war biopic. But that being said, it should be just a little bit embarrassing that it got better ratings than the combined audiences of wrestling shows. But anyways, here's, though, where things get a little bit sketchy, where the Monday Night War kind of branches off into two schools of thought. All right, now, obviously, on Monday, there was a Raw episode, and they drew a 4.1. Nitro on Tuesday also drew a 4.1. So they tied, right? I mean, the streak is over, right? Well, not really. See, there have been weeks when Nitro didn't air, and no one, including Vince, counts those wins as victories in the ratings war. Now, on the flip side of that, wins on weeks with no Raw are counted as victories by WCW and Eric Bischoff. So, I mean, as you can tell, keeping score of the number of weeks at number 1 was pointless the whole fucking time. It was all a marketing gimmick and continues to be a big marketing gimmick. I think for the sake of not burying Bischoff's whole podcast, though, yet. Let's call this week a wash, and it doesn't count at all. There was no Nitro on Monday, so there's no Monday Night War over the numbers. Let us move on. Dark matches this week have Ice Train defeating an unknown opponent. Literally, I couldn't find the fucking name of his opponent. Bill Goldberg jobs out John Betcha. No fucking idea who that is. I couldn't even Google who the fuck it was. No, nothing anywhere. Odds are good, not even an indie wrestler, just a guy maybe from a gym or something. Fucked if I know. Couldn't even find a picture of this poor fucking guy. Glacier and Ernest Miller defeat Villano's 4 and 5. And then here's the thing. Now let's get into Nitro itself. Now there's no, like I said, an official ratings war score, but we do have stats for the show. There was 7,465 in attendance, with 6,264 paying a $100,979 gate. Now, for comparison's sake, the last time WCW was here on February 10, 1997, only 5,924 paid a gate of 65,134 to see Nitro. Before that, Nitro was here in 1995 for 2 weeks back-to-back and didn't even report a gate, but had 3,500 pay to see their live wrestling show. So while I will bury dumb shit retroactively and on the fly, it's clear that WCW has found its niche and is expanding its fan base. Basically, here's the problem. A lot of the times when we've been talking about these numbers, we talk about these numbers, the 2.9 to the 3.4, which we're going to have next week. And so what you take away from that is, well, the wrestling audience must be a combination of both of those things, right? I mean, the wrestling audience must be, 6.3, 6.2? But it's not, because the whole wrestling audience tuned into Raw and the whole wrestling audience tuned into Nitro, which is why they both scored a 4.1. Because that's the core wrestling audience. Those additional numbers that you see, like the 2.9 instead of a 4.1, those are viewers more watching Nitro than Raw. And the 3.4 is viewers more watching Nitro than Raw. Do you understand what I'm saying? The core audience hasn't effectively grown yet. It will in a couple more months, but right now, that's your core audience. And that's who these guys are fighting over, is that 4.1. That's going to increase, of course, towards the end of the late 90s, of course. But right now, there's your core audience, and that's what these guys are fighting over. So when you see numbers a little bit wonky, where it's like 2.9 to 3.4, understand that it's still the same 4.1 core audience. They're just flipping back and forth like, fuck, most of us were, let's be honest. The show kicks off this week with Tony on a bump. He throws to the Nitro girls to start things off. When we're back with the announced team, Shivani gives us a show rundown. Larry gets a chant from the live audience, and then the NWO theme starts as Bischoff and Hogan come out to cut an embarrassingly boring promo while laying down in the ring about Luger. Now, I don't want to say that it's a Freudian thing for them to lay down in the ring while they're cutting a fucking promo on Luger. But let's be honest, it tells us just how seriously this is being taken. And Hogan has to come out later in the show to fucking cut a promo on Luger just to show that, oh no, we're taking it seriously. I mean, it's happening at Sturgis. They're not getting a gate for it. So why not just fuck around and who cares? Because we're getting paid one way or the other. And then somebody went, well, what about the pay-per-view buys? And then they just realized, oh shit, the light went on. We still got to generate pay-per-view buys. Fuck. Anyways, first match of the night is Konnan defeating Tsubasa. Tsubasa? Thing is, I'm not going to go with Mike Tenay's pronunciation on things since he can't even fucking say Saskatchewan right. Gave that match 1 out of 5. It's just a glorified squash match to put over how integral Konnan has been bringing luchadors in so that he can job them out to him every single week. Anyways, Ultimo Dragon after that defeats Steven Regal to win the WCW World Television Championship. I gave that 3 out of 5. No entrances here from either of them. Regal is still rocking his singlet to cover up the fact that he's getting fatter. Regal makes a show in the first minute or so of putting over nothing for the Dragon while shooting him to force him to sell things. Eventually, though, Dragon would get annoyed enough to stiff Regal right back, and this match actually started at that point. Regal is not the guy you want normally in a match with a high flyer, but he did a reasonably good job here putting over Dragon's offense. There was a spot here where Regal eats a suplex from the second rope in the corner, and he sold it rather well. Regal taps out of the Dragon Sleeper in very short title bout, which gets the Valvoline replay this week. I gave it 3 out of 5, but I was upset that it was quite this short. I just felt like it could have been a little bit longer, but then again, once I started seeing Regal stiff-shotting Dragon all over the place, realized that maybe it shouldn't have gone as long as I thought it was initially. Gene has a rant promo with Flair after this. After Flair briefly running his mouth, he introduces the new Horseman, but instead Six comes out and cuts a really fucking awful promo that Flair interrupts just so he can leave. Instead, he swerves Six, nails him with his right hook. Benoit comes out to back up Flair. Six throws Hall and Nash's names out there, where Benoit just answers, "Bring him out." I guess this is where we get the setup for the main event, though it could have been done much, much better. The Nitro Girls bring us back from break with a late 90s hip-hop before we get the promo for Saturday night. After this, Tony recaps the Flair promo, essentially telling us that there is, in fact, going to be a tag team match in the main event, but they're being wrestling coy about it, which at this point is just dumb. By this point, people know what to expect, and people really aren't flipping back and forth as often as they were, so you didn't have to try to play the maybe they will, maybe they won't. Just tell people that the fucking outsider is going to be in the main event, and they will turn from Raw to this to watch this, believe me, every single fucking time. The Giant defeats the Great Muta via disqualification after this. I gave it 2.5 out of 5. Giant uses Luger's music, but gets his green lights and fucking green font for his interest. I mean, couldn't they get this fucking kid some music at this point? Giant is looking good, but whatever Luger has him on, his doctor's going to pull him off of because it aggravates his pituitary gland and was causing some issues associated with his gigantism. Muta missed Giant during this match. Savage and Vincent come out after the Giant oversells it for a long while. Giant overpowers Vincent and Muta, and the NWO bail from the ring. Luger comes running out to get the, I don't know, post beatdown support? Fuck. Anyways, he gets hefted up for the chokeslam, but noticing all of that baby oil, Giant realizes this is Luger, and he's the only one that oils up this much in the locker room. He puts his little buddy down. After this, Dean Malenko defeats Mongo McMichael. I gave it 3.5 out of 5. Malenko comes out without the vest on. Mongo comes out without any luggage, figuratively or literally. At this point, Tony starts promoting Nitro parties, which were becoming a thing. I know because we were having them since really the only way you could get TNA in Canada was on an American dish. Right, allegedly. Anyways, these were a thing since WCW was posturing that they actually had way more fans than the WWF, but that the ratings numbers weren't showing it because of these Nitro parties. And instead of fighting it in a rare instance of Eric using his wisdom, I can't believe I said that. I feel like I need a shower now. Anyways, Eric wisely uses this as a guerrilla marketing strategy and turns it into a contest that Tony introduces as the match starts here tonight. Now, they wanted viewers to email in their Nitro Party pictures for prizes. Now, very rarely did prizes actually go out. Instead, Eric would use these fucking pictures and videos at management meetings as evidence that the numbers are even higher than the ratings are showing. And as luck would have it, TNT was already in talks to get their channel onto Canadian cable networks. And in late December of 97, they would. But Nitro itself, long after TNA got off of television in Canada, Nitros would continue to be broadcast either through TSN or Sportsnet. Just depends on which one was having WWF, because it would just be one or the other. Ironically enough, both had the same parent company. I don't know why American fucking wrestling companies would think that fucking the same company would own both of them, but whatever, anyways. Now, at this point, even when TNT came into Canada, and even when TNT went to, I think it started off on Sportsnet, because I think TSN had Raw at the time, we would still have these Nitro parties because they just became part of the week. Anyways, this match itself was thrown together last minute. Malenko was supposed to be announced by Flair as the newest Horseman, but Sullivan and Flair put their heads together and wanted to come up with a better way to turn Malenko into a Horseman that would be more lasting and old school instead of just adding a member via promo. The concept apparently here was to earn a position by taking on each member, and it didn't matter if you won or lost, it was how you wrestled, and if you had the other members' backs, so not unlike a biker club. Malenko pulls off the win here with Jarrett and Deborah providing interference, but refused to have his arm raised as he stormed to the back. We got a slow-mo replay to eat up some time prior to a promo from him on the ramp with Gene Okerlund. Now, Jarrett and Deborah also stuck around for this fucking promo, just a little higher up on the fucking on the ramp. Now, the promo itself was perfect for a bit. It had just the right amount of wrestling logic until that goddamn human trampoline had to open her mouth and get a ton of heat from the crowd. The only thing I'll say about her ranting is that she's very self-aware. As she says, I only do it with winners, which even Gene reacts to. My God. Malenko thankfully ends this train wreck. The concept itself around this promo was sound. It's just fucking Deborah. Keep her away from the microphone. And it's not just because I hate her, because I do, but it's because she's not getting the reaction you want out of the crowd. Jeff Jarrett gets plenty of heat on his own. He doesn't need fucking Deborah to help him get heat. And Deborah's not necessary to get heat between fucking Jarrett and Malenko. Both of these guys are more than capable of generating heat for this fucking feud on their own. They don't need this fucking train wreck of a woman. They don't. Her used up pussy needs to go to the back and fuck off TV. But here's the problem. It's the 90s and TNA sells. It just does. I mean, it does today too. Although people pretend like it doesn't, which is very, very odd. Anyways, she's irritating and annoying, and in order to use her as potential tits and ass, she would need to be in much less clothing, which of course Vince would realize when he hired her. After this, Eddie Guerrero defeats Hector Guerrero. I gave this 3.5 out of 5. Now, Hector comes out looking like a third string stripper. I mean, this is the guy you hire when the girls spend all of your bachelorette money on dildo popsicles and White Claws. Now, you see, I say that, but this looks like something that Mike McSugar would wear.
Yeah, baby, this is Mike McSugar, and you're listening to Marco Radio, baby. Yeah.
Jesus Christ. I love that creepy bald fuck. Anyways, Eddie gets no entrance here, but has ditched the singlet as part of his ring attire. Tenay claims that nothing in his records shows that these two were ever in a ring together. I mean, obviously for training purposes, but yeah, I guess never in a ring together. With the exception, I suppose, of Eddie's first showing on Nitro when he faced Hector in a match on Nitro television. But I mean, Professor Mike Tenay may have better records than we do over here. Eddie kicks the rope as Hector comes back in the ring, a low blow that the ref watches happen right in front of him, but does nothing about. Then Eddie performs his frog splash. Hector eats the pin to lose this effort. Malenko comes out at this point to nail Eddie as he turns around, and then it's a beatdown time until Hector saves his baby brother from Dean Malenko, and then he eats a beatdown from Malenko while Eddie just bails to get a ton of heat from the audience. Just classic. There's no notes. Fucking classic. The Nitro Girls bring us into hour 2 under the red light. Kim's late, still doesn't know what the fuck she's doing out there, so they wisely keep her ass buried in the back. Tony announces that one of the Nitro party prizes is that the Nitro Girls will show up at your party. Now, if you're wondering, no, this never legitimately happened, of course, for many reasons, but mostly because they're hot chicks. And would you put a group of hot chicks in the middle of a sausage party? The odds of something good coming out of that are laughably low, even in the 90s when we pretended we didn't know about these things. There would be some staged parties at local nice bars where the Nitro Girls would show up, but this idea still took root in our empty little teenage heads. And we wanted so bad for the Nitro Girls to show up at our fucking houses. It's so embarrassing to think back on it, but you know, at that point, the little brain was firmly in control. So it is what it is. After this, Gene does a rant promo. JJ Dillon, Stevie Richards comes running out, announces that he's indeed signed with WCW. He escorts JJ Dillon down to Raven at ringside, who offers him his WCW contract for him to sign. Apparently, Stevie has negotiated this contract, which is funny as shit because Stevie tells Raven that he's making almost as much as he is, and he even got him a standard car rental with a tape deck for those long drives. Now, of course, Raven in response gives us a poem and then rips up the contract before bashing Stevie in the head again. Now, these promos aren't too bad. Stevie makes them fun to watch in retrospect. And by the way, just in case you don't know, Stevie does have a YouTube channel. No, it's not as corny as these fucking promos are. But he does equipment reviews and gives some solid nutritional and workout advice. The link is in the show notes below, so check that shit out as well. Lex Luger defeats Scott Norton after this via DQ. I gave this one 2 out of 5. Norton comes out with Bagwell and Vincent. Bit of a botched hip toss here from Luger to Norton, but far from the worst I've ever seen. The ref calls for the bell before anyone got their hands on Luger. Even Luger was confused by this fucking call, and he asks for a microphone. Now, post-match, Luger cuts an in-ring promo, which was goofy from the start, because it is very much an 80s fucking promo. Hogan comes out and makes it even worse. Luger then chases the NWO to the back, and we go to break. Like, honestly, it legit looked like a group of wrestlers were walking to the back locker room. It was fucking horrible. No one bothered to even run. It was just, fuck it, let's go to the back and have a couple of fucking drinks. Back from break, Hall and Nash arrive, and Konnan comes in to tell them what happened, but they slough off the camera and go off camera, muttering something about the Privacy Act. Then it's time for the golden voice bastard Lee Marshall to lay another absolute fucking turd with the 1-800-COLLECT road report. The jokes are not even worth repeating at this point. Mortis and Wrath defeat La Parka and Psychosis after this. I gave flat 4 out of 5. Psychosis loses his balance on the top rope early on in the match, strains his quad, but he's such a goddamn badass, he doesn't even take time out to really heal and is back in the action seconds later. La Parka nails Wrath with a very nicely performed corkscrew plancha from the inside of the ring to the outside on Wrath. Mortis brings in Psychosis from the outside of the ropes inside with a suplex from the second rope, which was really amazing balance on his part. Sonny Ono and Vandenberg start talking shit to each other at ringside to distract us a little bit. Wrath and Mortis introduce a new tandem finisher yet to be named, where Wrath starts the whole thing off with a powerbomb setup. Mortis then grabs the hair of their opponent and pulls him down into a neck breaker. Now, this means that it's all over, which also means that, there's Mortis gets the 3 counts on Psychosis. Now, La Parka then comes into the ring and lays out Mortis with a balsa wood chair. Wrath then straight kicks him through the bottom and middle rope out to the floor, where La Parka eats a bump on his back and gets a groan of pain from the crowd at ringside. Ooh, my voice faded out there at the end. Buff Bagwell then defeats Booker T. I gave that 1 out of 5. No Stevie Ray with Booker, but Norton and Vincent come out with Bagwell. Booker T got rid of the spandex wrist sleeves and it has some lifting gloves on instead. No idea if this is a conscious replacement or not yet. This wasn't pushed enough as the 2 tag team wrestlers in a singles match, and they're both contenders for the tag team straps, but whatever. There's a goofy spot here between Nick Patrick and Bagwell that's not worth talking about, except to mention that it was absolute goddamn garbage. There's also a shit spot here where Norton calls Booker over to eat a clothesline. Booker could have at least tried to take a swing at Norton, but didn't. He just ate the fucking clothesline like a fucking jobber. Bagwell earlier backs up like a pussy when Nick Patrick confronts him. Post-match, Nick Patrick gets tossed out of the ring like a rag doll. Again, fucking garbage. After this is a Gene Ramp promo with Rey Mysterio. Okay, so, let's talk about the utter garbage this interview really was. Now, first, Ray's been out for 3 weeks. Gene says it's been 6, but it's been 3. Second, Gene tells us that Ray has a tendon injury and he's not going to get surgery. Instead, he's going to heal naturally, which is hilarious in the 90s in wrestling. But anyways, and now as somebody who's had knee injuries in the past, this isn't factually inaccurate. If he's got a torn tendon, but it didn't rip all the way through, surgery to have it removed and replaced is elective. If it's not torn all the way through, rehabbing it is the only way to fix it. And that's, I guess, about as naturally as it gets. Now, if you're going to ask, well, why would somebody heal it naturally versus having it removed? Well, the reason why you'd want to heal it naturally is your tendon will continue to be attached to the bones. The rip just heals. It takes a lot longer for that to happen, and it just heals. They've tried doing all kinds of stuff to these tendons. They've tried stitching them. They've tried bonding them together. Nothing works. It just has to heal naturally or get replaced. Those are your options. However, if they replace them, they scrape them off the bone, and they replace them with one of 3 options. Cadaver ligament. Buh. They harvest ligament from somewhere else in your body, usually from your Achilles tendon. Or the third option is they harvest muscle tissue, usually from your hamstring, and usually where your hamstring connects right underneath your glute. In most cases, they replace it with muscle fibers. Why? Because that makes a more stable knee. That's it. Now, recovery times for this fairly common surgery can vary from 4 to 6 weeks. That's just from the surgery. And then it's 6 to 9 months of rehab on the knee. Although if you have a good doc and a good trainer, you can probably wrestle as long as it's all wrapped up. If it's partially torn, and this is what I had, it takes at least a month before the joint can bear your weight, and then another 2 before you should really lift anything with that joint. Now, then it's best to just keep a brace on until you're fully recovered, not when you're lifting so much, once you can bear the weight, but definitely if the knee is going to make any movements. Now, an ACL, for those of you that don't know, let's pretend my knuckles here, if you're watching this on video, is a knee joint. The ACL protects the outer part from rocking out like this. The MCL is right where you see my wedding band here, in between the knees, and it keeps your knees from doing the twist. All right. So if you tear those, it stretches them out bad. So that means you get very little support, which means you can easily fuck your knee up easily like that. If the MCL is torn but not all the way through, you can have some horizontal instability. Obviously, this is important for a wrestler that does flippy dippy shit, right? I mean, we don't have to really dig into that, do we? All right, good. Now, Ray, on the other hand, would take cortisone shots to the knee since his actual injury 2 weeks before Konnan stretched his knee out and broke it. He's been on cortisone shots these last few weeks while he's been recovering naturally from his knee injury. Now, they get him back on the ring after they get him on a steroid cycle for 4 months. The question becomes now, was that wise or was it foolish? I mean, it's frustrating to say this, but it's hard to say. At the time, he was probably thinking of hitting the iron while it's hot and riding WCW's push to the mid-card because, let's be honest, Eric promised everyone superstardom and then lied to everybody. But Ray did get the attention of the WWF where he would eventually sign and actually get pushed to the top. But he had, as a result of this injury, and I believe there was one more before this, years of nagging pain injury and many injuries as a result of this not healing properly. He'd seen every fucking knee specialist in US, Mexico, Canada, and Europe. Eventually, he did have a full knee reconstruction in Germany a few years ago and is now relatively pain-free. If he'd taken time off to actually recover naturally at this point in his career, he might have missed his window. But this is the kind of thing that people don't think about when a wrestler has to go get around with a mobility scooter later on in life. Yes, obviously, wrestling is fake. These aren't real punches. These aren't real kicks. And guaranteed nobody has actually given birth to a hand. The flip side of this, though, is that stage combat has very real injuries, and a lot of wrestlers choose to work through those injuries instead of dealing with them. Anyways, we're getting too fucking serious. Gene is 4 scotches in at this point in the show. This whole fucking promo was garbage, and hunting for pops for Ray while getting some cheap heat for Konnan, who, my God, is leaning heavily into this Cholo shit. A little bit fucking hard for a Cubano. Anyways, the Parka, Psychosis, and the Villanos come out to have Ray's back. That's right. 4 heels come out to protect a face from another heel. Are we taking notes yet? Are we taking notes on how awesome Konnan is? Seriously, defend this shit, please. What am I missing? Konnan is effectively a Latino Hogan. Plain and simple. Feel free to prove me wrong. mlrmarket@gmail.com or leave a comment on this video below. Curt Hennig defeats Michael Wallstreet. I gave that one 2.5 out of 5. I feel like I was just inviting Satan into my kitchen. Anyways, I entirely forgot that Wallstreet was anti-WCW since being removed from the NWO. It reminds me again of my ongoing annoyance. Why didn't he sign a new contract? Oh, right. Wrestling. Hennig did all of the Mr. Perfect gimmicks leading up to the start of this match. The towel toss, the gum swat, which is objectively gross, by the way. Fans start chanting for DDP during this match, which Wallstreet and then the announce team put over in this jobbing effort from Mr. Wallstreet. Hennig then puts away Wallstreet with the Perfect Plex, which they are now calling the Northern Lights Suplex, which is what it is, but it's not a cool finisher name. Anyways, while this is happening, DDP comes down to the ring through the audience. They fight for a bit until Page reverses the suplex setup into a diamond cutter. The ring fills up with officials, and this leads us into the break. The Nitro Girls bring us back from break, dancing to what sounds an awful lot like Alex Wright's fucking theme song. In front of the fans, really close to the fans, by the way. After this, the Outsiders, Kevin Nash and Scott Hall, defeat Chris Benoit and Ric Flair to retain the WCW World Tag Team Championship belts. I gave this one 4.5 out of 5. Yeah, that's right. I gave Kevin Nash 4.5 out of 5. Judge me. I fucking dare you. The Outsiders come out, pose for a very long time before we go to break. I'm sure that the live audience loved that. It occurs to me as we get back from break tonight, mention that this is for the tag titles, even though the Steiners are the number one contenders. You gotta love wrestling logic.
There can be only one.
Apparently not. Flair and Benoit control most of the start of this match, with Hall doing a great job of selling the shit out of this match. Nash goes through 3 of his 7 moves before he starts eating some offense from Flair. Then Six jumps up on the ring apron to deliver an elbow shot to Flair as Nash performs his 4th move with a sidewalk slam, and this turns the match towards the Outsiders. Benoit gets in at the tag and lights up Hall and Nash, who sell like the pros that they are for him. Six leaps up on the ring apron to interfere, but Flair yanks him down as Benoit delivers the diving headbutt onto Hall. Nash breaks up the count as the fans pop for this whole exchange. Benoit mounts a comeback that's cut short by Nash's 5th move, the big leg, or the big boot, depending on who you ask. And that puts Benoit away for the 3 count. Outside, Flair and Six are going at it, with Six slapping on the Buzz Killer onto Flair's newly recovered shoulder. Mongo comes out, ragdolls Six to save Flair. The Steiners come out onto the ramp, and the crowd loses their shit as we fade to black on this episode of Nitro. Now, let's be honest. This show started off rough. Some of the promos were rough. Some of the matches were fucking dumpster fires. But I thought that I would hate the Guerrero family drama, and I don't. I thought I would hate the Wrath Mortis versus the Parka match, and it was damn good. Six still can't fucking cut a promo to save his life, even working with Ric Flair. Ray can't cut an injury promo to save his life and never has. However, this was a very solid Nitro. Despite starting off shitty and having the aforementioned shitty parts in it, 4 out of 5.
Well, that was an abortion of a show. Should the mood take you, check out markoutradio.com and leave a comment. You can also find links there to our Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Stitcher channels. You can even leave a voicemail on our Skype. Just click the links and share them.
Hi, I'm McMichael. You're listening to Markout Radio, and right back, if you're listening, I apologize.